The desert was quiet that morning, eerily so. The kind of silence that felt staged. Like the landscape was holding its breath. Maya Ramos adjusted her backpack straps and stared up at the sandstone cliffs of Red Rock Canyon. Their jagged faces, glowing amber in the morning light. She took a slow breath, as if trying to breathe in a moment and hold it forever. A hawk circled above, screeching once before disappearing behind the ridge. "This is it," she whispered to herself. Behind her, Jesse Marks fumbled with the GoPro mounted to his shoulder. "It's tilted. I look like I'm climbing sideways," he muttered, annoyed. Maya smiled faintly. "You always say that. Maybe the camera just sees the real you off balance." He didn't laugh. They had arrived late Friday evening, rented a small A-frame cabin 20 minutes from the trailhead, and planned to hike a lesser-known loop on Saturday morning before it got too hot. But something had felt off between them from the moment they arrived. Maya noticed it in the way Jesse slept on the far side of the bed, in how he avoided her eyes when she asked if he was okay, the way his hands trembled slightly when checking his phone, then shoving it quickly into airplane mode. Still, she had told herself this trip would heal the crackspatch, the fault lines between them. After all, it was here 5 years ago, on a different trail, in the same canyon, that he had first kissed her. Back then, his eyes had been wide with wonder and fear of losing her. Now they looked tired. They walked in silence for the first mile. Description: 20% the trail, narrowed as they climbed. Red dust clung to their boots. Cactus needles stuck out like warning signs. Every now and then, the wind whistled low and mournful between the rocks, like a ghost, exhaling. At a narrow overlook called Widow's Point, Maya stopped. The canyon fell away into a dizzying drop, the red cliffs rippling in layered waves below. She pulled out her phone and turned to Jesse. "Take one of me." Jesse hesitated. "We should keep moving. It's hotter than I thought." But she was already posing. Arms wide, smile forced but photogenic. Jesse snapped the shot. Her shadow stretched behind her like a second self, darker and longer than it should have been. Narration continued at the halfway mark. They reached a small natural arch. Maya suggested a break. Jesse sat, pulled out a granola bar, and stared blankly at the horizon. "I miss you," she said quietly. He looked at her. Really looked for the first time in weeks. "I'm trying," he said. "No, Jesse," Maya replied, holding back tears. "You're running. From me? From yourself?" "Ever since that call." "Don't," he snapped. "Not here. Not now." Maya's voice dropped. Who was she? Jesse stood, brushing off his pants. "We should move. She didn't follow you. Can't keep dodging this. I know someone else was involved. You changed after Santa Fe, after New Mexico. I found the texts, Jesse." Jesse turned, eyes hard. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, I do," she said. "And I know what you're capable of when you're scared." He opened his mouth to respond, but froze. Somewhere, behind them, footsteps. Fast, crunching gravel, then nothing. They turned, staring into the dense cluster of juniper trees and red rock boulders. No one, no movement, just the wind again, this time colder, sharper. Maya's face paled. "We're not alone." Dialogue 20% Jesse, "Probably just a lizard or something." Maya, "That was not a lizard. That sounded like boots." Jesse, "You're being paranoid again." Maya, "No, you're gaslighting me again." He sighed, and adjusted the GoPro again, not looking her way. Maya, "You said this trip would fix us, but you're still hiding things. If we don't talk now, then when?" Jesse, "I said this trip was a chance to start over." Maya, "Then tell me the truth." He stared at her, then looked past her down the trail, like he was calculating something. Or waiting for something. A moment later, he smiled but it didn't reach his eyes. "Come on," he said. "Let's finish the loop." She didn't move right away. Something inside her told her to turn around, leave, but she followed. Anyway, narration ending transition. That was the last time anyone saw them alive. The cafe owner at the trailhead remembered them. She looked nervous. He kept checking his Watch. A couple hikers remembered hearing raised voices echoing off the canyon walls, but no one stopped. They figured it was just lovers fighting. Happens all the time out here. The sun dipped low, then vanished. No calls came in that night. No updates. No check dash-ins. By Monday, both of their phones were still off. GPS trackers dead. Credit cards untouched. They had simply vanished, and 5 years would pass before Red Rock Canyon whispered their names. Again, the desert air tasted dry, like silence had settled into every grain of sand. A dusty trail wound through the rocks like a scar, lit gold by the early morning sun. Maya Ramos stood at the canyon's edge, her gaze trailing up the cliffs, as if trying to memorize every jagged curve. She blinked into the light, pulled her ponytail tight, and whispered to herself, "One more chance." Behind her, Jesse Marks muttered a curse at the GoPro on his shoulder. "Still crooked. I swear, this thing's cursed." She didn't turn. Maybe the camera just knows when things are off. He didn't laugh. She didn't expect him to. They had come here to fix something. At least, Maya had. A weekend away in Red Rock Canyon, returning to the place where they first fell in love, was supposed to be healing. Familiar, maybe even redemptive. But from the start, things felt fractured. Last night in the rental cabin, Jesse had gone to bed early, claiming a headache. No kiss, no goodnight, just silence and the glow of his phone screen under the covers. She saw him delete a text when he thought she wasn't looking. Now, as they hiked in the crisp air, their footsteps were the only sound between them. By the second mile, sweat slicked their backs. Maya paused under the shade of a twisted Joshua tree, watching Jesse as he paced ahead. His movements were stiff, distracted like someone walking into something they didn't want to face. "Let's stop at Widow's Point," she called. Jesse hesitated, then nodded. They stood side by side at the overlook, staring down at the vast canyon floor below. It was beautiful, terrifying, lonely. Maya pulled out her phone and turned to him, forcing a smile. "Take one of me." He sighed, lifted her phone, and snapped the photo. Behind her, her shadow stretched impossibly long across the rocks. "Got it," he said flatly. "Thanks." She stared at the picture. Her smile looked wrong, and there was something behind her blur, a shadow. She blinked. Gone. They walked on an hour later. They reached a narrow arch carved into the stone, where a flat patch invited rest. Maya sat down, brushing red dust from her knees. "I miss you," she said softly. Jesse looked at her like she'd spoken in a different language. "I'm trying." "No," she replied. "You're pretending." He didn't deny it. "This trip was supposed to be about honesty," she continued. "You promised me." His jaw clenched. "Not here, not now." "Then when?" she asked, eyes burning. "You've been different since New Mexico. Since that woman called, and the way you've been hiding your phone." "Stop." She leaned closer. "Who is she, Jesse?" He stood up fast. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know you," she whispered. "I know when you're lying." They froze. A sound-crunching gravel came from the ridge above. Maya turned, heart thudding. "Did you hear that?" "Probably a lizard," Jesse said. "That wasn't a lizard." Silence, then wind. Nothing more. Jesse adjusted the GoPro again. "Let's keep going." Maya stood but didn't follow. "I found the messages." Jesse turned slowly. "You said you'd stop, but they didn't." He said nothing. She took a step forward. "Tell me the truth. What happened in Santa Fe?" His lips parted. His eyes didn't. And then, like flipping a switch, he smiled. "Come on," he said. "Let's finish the loop." She hesitated. Her gut screamed at her to walk the other way. But her legs moved anyway. They disappeared into the trail, swallowed by the canyon walls. That evening, when they didn't return to the cabin, no one noticed. Not yet. The cafe owner remembered seeing them that morning. She looked anxious. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Two hikers recalled hearing voices echoing across the cliff stance. Low, one angry. They didn't investigate. They figured it was just a couple fighting. It happened all the time out here. By Sunday night, both phones were still off. The rental car sat untouched in the parking lot. Their bags still in the cabin. No one filed. A missing persons report. Maya's family thought she was on a disconnect weekend. Jesse's brother thought he was avoiding calls. Again, by Wednesday, Red Rock swallowed them whole. No screams, no blood, just wind and time. And for 5 long years, that canyon said nothing. Until one morning, someone ran the same trail and tripped on something not meant to be found. The wind hit hard that morning, stronger than usual for September. Nico Reyes adjusted his headphones, breath fogging lightly in front of him as he jogged uphill through Red Rock's eastern rim. Music pulsed in his ears, but his mind wandered. It always did out here. He didn't jog for fitness. He jogged for quiet. 3 tours in Iraq had left his nerves fried and his nights wrecked. But in the canyon, with the sky stretching endlessly above and the redstones whispering the secrets of 1,000 years, he found something like peace. Even if temporary, his therapist called it exposure healing. He called it escape. The trail narrowed past the marker for Widow's Point, a bend of jagged stone that always made him slow. A few months back, a girl had slipped here, fractured her skull. No one had heard her scream. Nico hated that part. He paused to catch his breath near the overlook, squinting down at the canyon floor. The light shifted, something glinted near the rocks about 20 feet off trail trash. Reflective gear. Curious, he stepped off the path and picked his way carefully over to the source. It wasn't trash. A torn piece of fabric faded denim pecked from beneath a rock, its edge scorched and stiff. Nico crouched, heartbeat ticking up. He pulled at the fabric, dislodging a few stones, and froze. A Polaroid photo, cracked, half covered in dust, but still intact. He stared at it. A woman, young, dark hair, brown eyes, was standing with arms open in front of a red rock cliff. Her smile was hesitant, uneven. There was a bruise under her eye, faint, fresh, and behind her barely noticeably shadow. Not hers, someone else's. He looked around. The trail was empty. He pocketed the photo and stood, unsettled. It didn't feel like something that had been lost. It felt like something that had been hidden. Detective Lena Marquez didn't look up as the front desk clerk buzzed her phone. Got a walk-in. Terry says he found something weird up in Red Rock. You want this? She sighed. Her inbox was already overflowing. It had been for years, especially since she got stuck, leading cold case review for the Clark County Sheriff's Department. A desk job, really. One meant for paperwork, not fieldwork, but something in the clerk's voice made her pause. Yeah, send him in. Nico entered the office like a man unsure if he belonged there. He sat stiffly, hands clenched. When he pulled out the Polaroid, his fingers shook. Lena leaned forward. This was where he told her. She studied the image. The woman's face, the bruise, the eerie shadow, the time stamp printed in faint ink on the bottom corner, the 10th of August, 2019. Lena sat back slowly. I know her, she said. Later that evening, Lena pulled the file from the cabinet. Faded label, Ramos Marks disappearance. Case hashtag 197C-88. She flipped through. It rental cabin photos, credit card logs, last known GPS pings. No signs of foul play, no remains. The couple had vanished. Some thought they eloped. Others believed they fought and split up. A few internet sleuths insisted they were murdered. Evidence, no suspects, no bodies, just another mystery swallowed by the desert. Until now, she pinned the photo. Beside the trail map, the timestamp placed it just hours before Maya and Jesse had gone dark. The bruise changed things. It suggested violence. The shadow suggested someone else was there, someone never mentioned in the report. That night, Nico couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the moment he found the photo. The way it had been pressed beneath that stone, like someone had wanted it found, but not yet. His phone buzzed just after midnight. A text from an unknown number. You shouldn't have touched it. His chest tightened. He texted back, who is this? No response. The screen dimmed. The shadows in his apartment seemed to lengthen. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once. Then silence. Lena arrived at the trailhead just after dawn. The ranger on duty, a sharp-eyed woman named Kel, walked her through the area. We cleaned this trail in 21. No one mentioned finding a thing. If that photo's been out there 5 years, it's held up better than it should have. Unless it was placed more recently, Lena said. Kel nodded grimly. You think someone came back? Lena didn't answer. Instead, she retraced Maya and Jesse's last hike step by step, pausing where the photo had been found. She knelt, brushing aside more dust. Her fingers hit metal. She pulled out a jagged earring silver, oxidized by years. In the elements, a backing pin still attached. She bagged it, and then, just past Widow's Point, she noticed something else, a faint indentation in the ground, like someone had once buried something and the dirt had settled. She didn't dig, not yet, but she marked the spot. This wasn't just a cold case anymore, it was alive again. The news broke 3 days later. New evidence discovered in 2019, read, Rock disappearance, the photo was leaked. Forums exploded. People began to remember things they hadn't before. I saw a guy that day alone, one comment read, he came down from the ridge fast, sweating like hell, didn't look at anyone. Another, there was yelling, a woman's voice. Then silence. Lena combed through it all, and there, buried in a thread from 2020. She found something chilling. A post from an anonymous account. Months after Maya vanished, she found out what he did. She wasn't supposed to. The canyon keeps secrets. Lynn stared at the username, at @sandamongus88. Jesse's single quotes, as gaming handle in college, someone had posted under his name after he disappeared. Or, Jesse was alive. Back in his apartment, Nico couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him home. He sat on the edge of his bed, clutching a flashlight. The Polaroid was on the table, inside a plastic bag. He stared at Maya's eyes. She had known fear, not panic, not shock. Fear, and behind her view, looked closely enough there, was more than just a shadow. It was an arm, just barely visible, and it was reaching toward her. The desert has no walls, no locked doors, but it hides what it wants to. Detective Lena Marquez sat in her office at 6:43 a.m., watching the Polaroid under a magnifying lamp like it might confess. The arm in the shadow, barely visible, was what unsettled her most. It wasn't Jesse's. The angle was wrong. It wasn't holding Maya. It was reaching like it had done it before. She turned toward her monitor and pulled up the Red Rock Search and Rescue Archives. One of the volunteers from the 2019 search, a part-time photographer named Levi Darnell, had volunteered drone footage that covered the area near Widow's Point. At the time, they didn't find anything unusual, but at the time, they weren't. Lena scanned through grainy overhead footage of the rocky ridgeline, letting the cursor move second by second. Time passed like sediment, and then on the 28-minute mark of the third, she froze. There 2 people, walking the ridge. Maya, in a red hiking vest. Jesse, tall arms, swinging like he was talking fast. They stopped. Maya turned. Jesse didn't. And, behind them, maybe 50 feet back, a third figure. Lena leaned in. The image was pixelated, smeared by heat waves, but the body shape was unmistakable. Taller than Jesse, broader, wearing something dark. She rewound, played it again. They weren't alone. The smell of stale vape and microwave popcorn filled the air when Lena knocked on the apartment door. It swung open halfway, revealing Craig Ellis, Jesse's former roommate and best friend. He hadn't changed much since college, except now his buzzcat had receded, and a beer belly pressed against a graphic tee that read, I know the Wi-Fi password. His eyes narrowed. Lena, he said, holy crap, haven't seen you since what? The search team gave up. I'm working the case again, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invite. You got a minute? Craig shrugged and flopped onto his gaming chair. His apartment was cluttered, walls plastered with superhero posters, desks stacked with empty soda cans. You think they're still alive? He asked. Maya and Jesse. I think someone else was with them, Lena said. Did Jesse mention anyone tagging along that weekend? Craig blinked, then laughed. No. That weekend was their thing. Like a love pilgrimage, or whatever. You know Maya, she was always writing poems about rocks and cliffs and fate. Lena stared. You were close with Jesse. We were like brothers, shared everything, even passwords. He smirked. She didn't smile back. You ever hear of the handle at Sandermungus88? Craig froze. Yeah, he said slowly. That was Jesse's tag, back in the day. Call of Duty, Reddit, Discord. He used it everywhere. Someone posted with it months after he disappeared. Craig swallowed. That's impossible, unless it wasn't Jesse using it. Back in her office, Lena pulled out Jesse's employment records. His digital footprint had gone dark in August 2019, the same week as the hike. No card activity. No logins. Except for one. A credit card tied to a shared phone plan with his brother, Daniel Marks, had been used once. 6 days after the disappearance, at a gas station in Gallup, New Mexico. The charge was small, under $10, but it was tied to a burner phone purchased at a nearby Walmart. The phone had been registered to a fake name, Jace Hollow. An alias Jesse used in college when he didn't want people knowing it was him. In certain chat rooms, that same name had once been linked to an account that sent anonymous messages to Maya. Things like he's lying about Santa Fe. Ask him what happened in room 112. Lena drove to the edge of Henderson, where Daniel Marks lived. In a crumbling mobile home that buzzed with mosquitoes and regret, she knocked. A long silence. Then the door creaked open. Daniel stood barefoot in flannel pajama pants and a torn tank top. Tattoos crept up his arms like vines strangling dead trees. He didn't look surprised to see her. I figured someone'd show up eventually, he said. You knew they went missing. Everyone knew. It was all over the damn news. You didn't come forward. I didn't know anything, he said, then paused. Not officially. What does that mean? Daniel scratched his beard, eyes glassy. Jesse called me. A week before they left, said someone was threatening Maya. That she was digging into old stuff. I told him to leave it alone. Let sleeping monsters sleep. Did he say who? Daniel looked away. He didn't need to. Room 112. Lena said softly. Daniel froze. He told you, she said. Daniel exhaled, long and slow. There was an incident, back in Santa Fe, before he met Maya, a girl he was seeing ODD. But Jesse always said it wasn't an accident. Said she was pushed, but the cops buried it. No proof, no charges. Why would Maya care? Because Jesse was scared someone knew, Daniel said. He thought someone was following them. Said if anything happened, it would look like he did it. But he didn't. He wouldn't. Lena leaned forward. You were in Red Rock, weren't you? Daniel's voice went cold. I was in Albuquerque. There's drone footage, a third figure on the ridge. He didn't blink. You better start remembering things, Daniel, she said. Because if you were up there, you're no longer a witness. You're a suspect. Daniel stepped back, eyes wide now. I didn't touch her. I didn't even go near them. Jesse told me to stay away. Why? Because he thought she was going to leave him, Daniel said. He was afraid of being left alone again. Lena let the silence sit. Then she said, Do you think Jesse's still alive? Daniel didn't answer, but his fingers started trembling. That night, Lena returned to the office and sat in front of the drone footage again. She zoomed in frame by frame, sharpening the pixels with every enhancement tool she had. On the final still, she paused. The third figure was wearing something familiar, a dark hoodie. With a crescent wolf patch on the back, she pulled up Jesse's DMV file, then his brother's, then something clicked. It wasn't Daniel on the ridge. It was someone they both knew, and she had just found their therapist's contact in the file. Dr. Yvonne Slate. August 3, 2019, Jesse hasn't looked at me the same since. I mentioned Santa Fe. His eyes go someplace else. Like a hallway with no doors. I know there's something behind that silence. I just don't know if I want to open it. The ink was smudged water, maybe, or tears. Detective Lena Marquez turned the journal page slowly, like it might snap. The leather cover was worn. The the spine bent in places where Maya must have clenched it in her hands. Most of the pages were filled with neat, deliberate writing. A teacher's pen. But starting late July, things changed. The entries got shorter, choppier, paranoid. August 7, 2019, he lied again. Said he didn't know who was texting me. But the number matches a burner I found in the laundry drawer. Why hide that unless it meant something? The journal had been hidden in a crevice behind Devils. Golchnico Reyes had led them there. Folded next to it was a silver chain, knotted, and a torn map with an X drawn in red marker. That X had led to a buried box. Inside, a dirt-streaked engagement ring, never given, and a micro SD card. Lena stared at the journal again, flipping back a few more pages. July 29, 2019, Dr. Slate says, I need to differentiate fear from imagination. But I'm not imagining the way Jesse's mood changes after his phone buzzes. I'm not imagining the message I got last night. Ask him what happened in room 112. She paused. That phrase had come up before. In a comment thread, in an alias, Jesse. Once used, someone wanted Maya to dig. Someone wanted her to know. The sound of clinking coffee mugs echoed in Lena's kitchen as she poured another cup. The journal still open on the table. The words haunted her, Dr. Yvonne Slate. A licensed couples therapist, highly regarded, formerly contracted with the county. Now retired, or rather self-removed from her practice. Just months after the disappearance, interesting timing, Lena pulled up her license history. No formal complaints, no malpractice, but for client couples had stopped sessions abruptly within the span of a year, no follow-ups, no referrals. She dug further. One of those couples, a domestic violence case that never went to court. The woman had gone missing 2 months later, still unsolved. Lena's pulse quickened. She returned to the journal. August 9, 2019. Therapy today felt like an ambush. Jesse played the victim. Said I create problems that aren't there. Slate nodded like she already believed him. I asked why she never challenged his version of things. She said, because sometimes, the story we tell ourselves is more comforting than the truth. Maya underlined that sentence twice. Jesse's emails, recovered from a cloud backup by cyber forensics, included several calendar invites to therapy. One stood out. August 5, 2019, private session Jesse only. Lena raised an eyebrow. Couples therapy, but solo. She called Dr. Slate's number. It went to voicemail. She called again. Left a message. Nothing. Inside Maya's journal was a taped Polaroid faded from early in their relationship. Jesse and Maya, smiling by the lake, arms around each other. No tension, no bruises. Just sunlight and possibility. On the back, Maya had written, he promised me love wouldn't ever feel like fear, but that promise had not held. That night, Lena visited Maya's old apartment complex. The unit had long since been rented out, but the manager still remembered her. She was sweet, he said, quiet, kept to herself, but she was different those last few weeks. Kept asking if there were any cameras near her parking spot. Said someone was watching her. Was there? Lena asked. The man nodded. Yeah, but they were dummy cameras, just for show. He paused. One night, I found her crying in the stairwell. Said she didn't feel safe going inside. Did she ever say why? No. Just that she felt like someone was always 2 steps behind her. Back in her apartment, Lena played the video on the SD card recovered from the box. It was grainy. Shaky, clearly taken on a phone, the view tilted down from behind a bush, facing a bench. Maya sat there, glancing over her shoulder every few seconds. She was alone, nervous that the person recording didn't speak, didn't move, just watched her, for nearly 6 minutes. The timestamp matched a day Jesse claimed he was out of town for a work seminar. So who was watching Maya, and why didn't she go to the police? Lena already knew the answer. She tried. There was an incident report filed under Maya's name 1 week before the trip. It had been dismissed as a domestic misunderstanding. The responding officer, a rookie who noted that Maya seemed uncertain and contradicted herself. Case closed. Maya's final entry was short. August 10th, 2019, Red Rock tomorrow. He says we need this trip. I want to believe him. I really do. But, if anything happens, it wasn't an accident. Lena stared at the sentence for a long time. It wasn't written in fear, it was written in knowing. She closed the journal and picked up her keys. It was time to pay Dr. Slate a visit. The sun hadn't fully risen yet when Detective Lena Marquez arrived back at Devil's Gulch. The wind screamed through the rocks like it was trying to warn her off. She didn't flinch. She parked the cruiser by the trailhead and grabbed her flashlight. Boots crunching through the brittle ground. The area had been flagged and logged 2 days ago, when Nico Reyes led them here. But Lena wanted to see it again alone. She ducked through the natural arch and stepped into the slot canyon where Maya's journal had been discovered. It was exactly as they'd left it. Almost the small crevice where the journal had been wedged looked deeper now, wider. Lena knelt and reached inside. Empty. The knot in her gut tightened. She knew the journal had been collected and processed, but something was wrong. She stood, scanning the canyon walls. Her instincts were sharp-honed from years on the force and a lifetime of learning not to ignore that little electric hum at the base of the neck. She wasn't alone. A rock clattered from above. She spun. No one, or too fast to see. 30 minutes later, Lena stood in the evidence room of the sheriff's department, flipping through Maya's journal again. She already knew the pages by heart. But now, something wasn't right. She turned to the end. The last page was missing. It hadn't been scanned, copied, or catalogued. Who signed off on this? She barked. The evidence clerk stammered. It came in with the field kit. We bagged and tagged what was there. Chain of custody's clean. Who touched it last? The clerk flipped through the log. Slate, he read. Lena's blood ran cold. Dr. Slate came here. She asked. No, not the therapist. Officer Darren Slate. Day shift. Patrol, I assumed. She's his mother. The address Lena had for Dr. Yvonne Slate was a modest 2-story home in a quiet, sterile part of Summerlin. White blinds. Paved driveway. No signs of life. Lena rang once. Twice, no answer. She walked the perimeter. Curtains drawn tight. Backyard gate, chained. She returned to her cruiser and waited at 10:43 a.m. A black Toyota pulled into the driveway. Officer Darren Slate stepped out, uniformed, unaware. Lena slid out of her car and met him halfway. Busy morning, officer? She asked calmly. He froze, instantly alert. Detective Marquez, everything okay? She smiled like a blade. Let's talk about your mother. Inside the house, Lena noted the details. A wall of degrees. Family photos. A decorative throw pillow. That read, breathe in, breathe out. Don't scream. Dr. Slate entered from the hallway. Elegant, mid-60s, composed. The kind of woman who used pauses as power. I wondered when you'd come, she said. Then I'm glad we're not disappointing each other, Lena replied. They sat in the living room, Darren awkwardly remaining. By the door, I need to ask you about a former patient, Maya Ramos. Dr. Slate nodded once. I remember her well. She wrote in her journal that you downplayed her concerns. That you favored Jesse. Is that a crime? Slate asked. No. Lena said, but losing a page from a murder victim's journal might be. The room tightened. I reviewed the file, Dr. Slate said smoothly. I removed a page because it didn't concern the case. You're not law enforcement. You don't get to make that call. I was protecting a confidence. She said, a dying one. Did Maya know she was going to die? Dr. Slate hesitated, and in that hesitation, Lena saw it something sharp behind the eyes. Not guilt, not fear, control. She came to me 2 days before the trip, Slate finally said alone. She was frantic, accused Jesse of manipulating her, of watching her through her devices. She said he was planning something. What did you tell her? That she was projecting her trauma, Slate said. I didn't believe her, and now I believe I was wrong. Back in her car, Lena slammed the door harder than Necessary. The page was gone. Erased, but Maya had left. BREADCRUMBS. Lena opened the file from the SD card. Again, the folder had a few corrupted audio logs. One of them was repairable. The timestamp was 11:52 p.m. on August 8th. Maya's voice whispered, panicked. If anything happens to me, look behind the boulder, at Raven's Gap. He doesn't know I saw what he buried. He thinks I won't go near it again. Lena replayed it. Over and over. That name, Raven's Gap, it wasn't on the park's official map, but experienced hikers knew it, and Jessie had hiked it alone. 1 week before the couple's final trip, at dawn the next day, Lena returned to Red Rock with a small team. Numbered cameras, no press, just gloves, shovels, and instincts. Nico Reyes joined them. He hadn't slept, he hadn't jogged, either. Raven's Gap is about a mile up from Widow's Point, he said. But you have to climb to reach the boulder shelf. They made the ascent slowly. Nico led the way. By noon, they reached the outcrop. A massive boulder sat nestled between two cliff walls. Its base surrounded by loose stones and disturbed dirt. Lena knelt, started digging. 6 inches down. Her fingers scraped metal. She pulled. A weather-worn lockbox emerged. Its paint flaking like rusted skin. Lena forced it open. Inside, a ring box unopened, a broken necklace, a faded receipt from a motel in Santa Fe, and a SIM card wrapped in plastic. She held it up to the light. Later, in the digital forensics lab, they mounted the SIM, one audio file. Jessie's voice, frantic, rushed. I'm doing this because I don't know who else to trust. She found the girl's name, the one from room 112. Maya thinks it's connected. I told her it wasn't, but it was. Pause. I was there, but I didn't kill her. I swear to God I didn't. Another pause. If you're hearing this, it means I'm probably gone, or running. Please tell her I'm sorry, and if they find this, tell them to dig deeper. Lena leaned back in her chair, the file still playing. Jesse Marks had not been an innocent man, but he hadn't been the only one involved, and someone had made sure that if Maya got too close she'd vanish too. The lab was silent, but the air vibrated with tension. Lena Marquez leaned against the edge of the console, arms crossed, watching the tech run a deep scan on the recovered SIM card. The voice file had finished playing 15 minutes ago, but its weight hadn't left the room. Anything else? She asked quietly. The tech, a wiry man named Theo, nodded slowly. Yeah, there's metadata here, weird stuff. This SIM, it wasn't just used in a burner. Lena stepped closer. What do you mean? Theo pulled up a list of connection logs, pinged off multiple towers in the weeks after Jesse disappeared. That's not surprising. What is, he clicked, highlighting a data stream, is that it kept syncing with a specific encrypted cloud account. Whose? Theo looked at her, eyes tight. Jesse's didn't match. Maya's didn't match. But there's a third account registered under a pseudonym. Encrypted folder, one-way access. Someone's been backing up files from the SIM remotely. Recently, he nodded. 2 weeks ago. Lena's voice dropped. Someone knew it was buried, and they'd been waiting for someone to dig it up. She left the precinct just past midnight. Desert air hung thick and restless. Inside her car, she played the voice message. Again. I didn't kill her. I swear to God, I didn't. If you're hearing this, it means I'm probably gone. Please tell her, I'm sorry. His voice cracked. On that last word, not guilt. Regret. Lena stared at the windshield, the canyon of memory opening up before her. She'd worked to many of these. Men who lied, women who vanished, families who got silence instead of answers. But Jesse, he was different. He wanted to be found, and yet he kept running. Why? In a small apartment, 30 miles east, a phone buzzed to life on a kitchen counter. The screen lit up. New activity detected. SIM 112/8. Man sitting at the table looked up from his glass of whiskey. Late 30s, sunken cheeks, a scar near his collarbone. He watched the phone like it had spoken. He picked it up, tapped into a hidden app. 3 new files, one marked recovered audio. He pressed play. Jesse's voice bled into the room. The man smiled thin, cold. Always had a big mouth, he muttered. He opened a drawer and pulled out a rusted dog tag. Marks, J.A. He set it next to the phone and reached for his gun. Lena returned to Nico Reyes the next morning. He was sitting outside a VA counseling center, staring at the ground like it might shift. I think I've seen him before, he said without her asking. The guy in the drone footage. She blinked. Where? Not clearly, just a feeling. A few months before the couple went missing, I was running this trail and saw a guy pacing up on the ridge. Too far to make out his face. But something was wrong about the way he moved. Like what? Like he was rehearsing something, Nico said. Like he was stalking. Back at the station, Lena reopened the motel receipt from the lockbox. The one from Santa Fe. Motel Glenview, room 112 check-in, June 11, 2017. She pulled the incident report from that date, female, 24. Overdose, found naked in the tub. No signs of struggle. Ruled accidental. But someone had scrawled in the margin of the original file. Marks says he left at 11. Witness places him there at 1:45 a.m. It was initialed by a former detective who'd retired in 2018. No follow-up, no charges, no subpoenaed. Texts, buried, until Maya started digging. Until she got too close to whatever Jesse had buried that night. The missing page from Maya's journal still haunted Lena. The rest had been methodical. Deliberate tracking Jesse's moods, his phone, calls, his lies. That last page. It had been torn out because it named someone. Slate had said it was irrelevant. Lena didn't believe that for a second. She called up the logs again. The digital backup of Maya's personal laptop recovered and archived by her family after her disappearance. It had been locked with a simple passphrase. Don't trust his eyes once inside. Lena found a folder labeled simply, what he won't say, photos, screenshots, notes, a list of names Jesse had blocked. One stuck out, Travis. Attached was a photo, Jesse, another man. Arms slung over each other's shoulders, drunk, happy. On the back of the photo, in Maya's handwriting, this is the man who whispered at the funeral. This is the man Jesse won't talk about. Lena zoomed in, the man from the kitchen, the scar she ran the name, Travis Reed, former Army, dishonorably discharged. Last known address Gallup, New Mexico. Same town Jesse's burner pinged from. Lena stared at her caseboard. Jesse had secrets, but Maya had witnessed something Jesse could never bring to light, and now someone else was cleaning up the mess. Someone who wasn't afraid to wait 5 years for a threat to surface again. That night, Nico received a voicemail. Blocked number. He pressed play. You shouldn't have led her there. A pause. You dig too deep, Nico, and you won't crawl out. The line went dead. His hands trembled. He looked out the window. A black car idled across the street at the same time. Lena's inbox lit up with an anonymous email. Subject room 112 was just the beginning. Attached was a video file. She hesitated, clicked grainy. Motel surveillance. Jesse entering the room, behind him Travis Reed, and then the lights went out. Lena had stared at death in the eyes of addicts, widows and murderers, but the silence of a forgotten motel room carried a different kind of horror. The Glenview was off Route 66, hidden behind a shuttered gas station and a billboard peeling with time. The sign buzzed in the wind, vacancy. The Y flickered like it wanted to leave. Room 112 was still there, same door, same rusted lock, same black smear on the carpet. A woman died here, and someone lied about it. The clerk barely looked up when Lena flashed her badge. You here for another OD case? He asked, eyes heavy with defeat. Depends, Lena said. You remember a guy named Jesse Marks? He nodded instantly. The one with the twitchy friend. Big guy. Wore a hoodie in summer. Travis Reed. Yeah, that him. You ever see them fight? The clerk gave a bitter smile. Lady, I heard the girl screaming before she died, called it in. They said she OD, but I knew better. He paused. She wasn't screaming for help, she was begging. Lena reviewed the 2017 incident report Again, the girl had a name, Emily Hart, 24, from Tucson. No priors, no drug history. Toxicology showed fentanyl, but barely enough to be lethal. The odd part, bruising around the mouth, undocumented in the official cause. A quiet note from the original coroner. Signs inconsistent with standard overdose. So why wasn't it flagged? Because the lead detective Roman Callo had a reputation for closing files fast, and Callo was now retired in Mesa, Arizona. Lena called him, he didn't answer. She drove there anyway. Callo's house was modest. Beige paint, desert landscaping. It smelled like old leather and half regrets. "You're digging up old ghosts, Marquez," he said, after finally letting her in. Room 112 was a closed case. Was it? Lena asked. He poured himself whiskey at noon and sat. "Listen, there was a call from someone higher up. Told me to shut it down, said the victim's family didn't want a scene. Said it'd reflect badly on the department. Who called? I don't know. But Jesse's buddy, Travis. He wasn't just some loser. He had friends, ex-military, dirty contracts, maybe even intelligence." Lena felt her stomach turn. "You're telling me room 112 was covered up?" Callo downed his drink. "I'm telling you, I don't sleep through the night anymore." Back in Vegas, the surveillance video from the email replayed on Lena's laptop. She froze the frame. Travis Reed entering room 112 with Jesse. Time-stamped 1:42 a.m. Emily was already inside. There was no footage of anyone leaving, but Emily died hours later, which meant both men were present, and at least one of them lied. Lena pulled up Emily's case file again, combing for family contacts. Her parents were both deceased, but under emergency contact, there was one other name, Madeline Hart. Twin sister. Lena picked up the phone. The woman who opened the door in Flagstaff looked older than 30. Hair pulled into a messy bun, eyes wary, tired. "Madeline Hart?" Lena asked. "Depends who's asking." "Detective Marquez, Vegas PD," Maddie exhaled sharply. "It's about Emily, isn't it?" "I believe she was murdered," Lena said. "And your sister wasn't the only target." They sat on the porch with iced coffee that neither touched. "She called me the day before," Maddie said. "Said she was scared. Said she was meeting someone who promised closure." "Closure? About what?" "She was in love with Jesse. Or thought she was. But there was always this other guy, Travis. He hovered. He controlled everything. Where she went, who she saw. He once erased her entire phone because he didn't like her call log. Did she ever file a report?" "Once, but she dropped it. Said he'd promised to change. And that night, she said she was going to end it. Said she was going to expose what happened in Afghanistan." Lena's breath caught. "What happened?" Maddie's hands trembled. "She never told me. Just said, there's a girl back there who didn't make it. And I know why." That night, Lena called Dr. Slate again. Voicemail. She drove to the house. Empty. Lights off. She knocked anyway. Silence, then a buzz behind her. Text message, unknown number, "You're getting close, detective, but you missed something." A second message, "Maya never left Red Rock." Lena froze. Was it a threat or a confession? She called dispatch. "I need ground radar and cadaver dogs back at Widow's Point, immediately." Dawn broke over the canyon, like blood spilled across rock. Search teams fanned out in silence. Then one bark, then another. The dogs circled near a cracked ridge. Dirt packed oddly. The team moved in. 10 minutes later, bones, human, small, female dental records would confirm it. But Lena already knew. Maya had been here the whole time. She hadn't vanished. She had been silenced, and someone, Travis, Jesse, maybe both, had made sure of it. That night, Lena pored over Maya's journal again, front to back. Every page. Then, she found it. A small sketch near the spine of the cover, a symbol, a circle with a slash through it. She'd seen it before, on the burner phone, on the motel receipt, on Travis's tattoo. It wasn't random. It was a mark, a group, a pact, a secret, and whatever happened in room 1 was just the beginning. The truth, when buried, doesn't die, it rots. And the smell always finds a way to the surface. Lena Marquez sat in a dim corner of the archives room. Blue light from her laptop casting shadows across stacks of boxes. The hum of the server fan was the only sound. She'd been digging for 10 hours straight through digital red tape, declassified fragments, and half-legible scans. The file that finally cracked things open was labeled Operation Narrow Veil. Unconfirmed asset activity, there it was, Jesse Marks. Travis Reed, 2 other names redacted. The timestamp, Afghanistan, 2014. A mission described in vague language, sensitive recovery, non-sanctioned contact, and one entry that froze her subject Alpha, unaccounted for. Civilian female casualty potentially witnessed by local recommendation. Containment protocol. Lena cross-referenced the mission logs with field obituaries. There was one, a girl, a 15-year-old Afghan interpreter named Layli, reported dead from crossfire, but her name was flagged again in a complaint from a local civilian who claimed she had been executed. No investigation, no accountability. And yet, Emily Hart had told her sister, "There's a girl back there who didn't make it." Now Lena understood. Jesse and Travis hadn't just returned from a bad war, they brought its ghosts with them. She reached out to an old contact at the VA, a trauma counselor named Ellis Fahey. When she mentioned Travis Reed, the line went quiet. "Shouldn't be talking about this," he said finally. "Ellis, those guys weren't just broken," he said. "They were bonded. They had this code, not military. Something else, some vow. If one talks, the others bleed for it. A pact, they called it that. Yeah. The pact. After the Lele incident, they made promises, silence, loyalty, retaliation. Retaliation against who? Anyone who talked. Emily Hart tried to talk, she died. Maya started asking questions, she was stalked, buried, and Jesse, he ran, left a breadcrumb trail for someone, anyone, to piece it together, but never said it outright, because if he did, the pact would come for him to. Lena returned to the forensics lab. Theo met her with a frown. "You're going to want to hear this." He pulled up the decrypted portion of the cloud account Travis had accessed. Hidden inside a folder marked Grit was a series of audio logs. One was labeled, "Jesse Final Vaulted." Lena pressed play. "I was part of it. I wanted to belong. When we lost, Halale didn't speak up. I didn't stop it. I should have. Emily found out. She had a letter from the translator's cousin. Said she knew what happened. She threatened to go public. Travis said we had to protect the integrity of the mission. I didn't know what he meant until she stopped breathing." Pause. "I think he's going to do it again." Maya found the letter. "That's why he's following us." Lena felt the burn crawl up her spine. Jesse hadn't killed Maya. He'd tried to protect her, and paid for it. Nico Reyes hadn't slept in 2 days. He walked into the precinct, pale and shaken, holding a manila envelope. Lena looked up. "What is it?" "I got this taped to my front door this morning. Inside, photos. Maya, sitting on a bench. The same photo from the SD card from the person who was watching her. But there were more now. Maya crying in her car. Maya arguing with Jesse. Maya jogging alone, and a note written in thick Sharpie. She should have kept her mouth shut. Now you do the same." That night, Lena returned to the canyon with a shovel and a voice recorder. Not because she expected to find more bodies, because she needed to understand what Maya saw, what she felt before she died. She found the ledge overlooking Widow's Point, sat down, closed her eyes, and hit record. "Maya, I don't know if you ever felt heard, but I'm listening now. I know you were scared. And I know what they did to you. What they did to Emily, to Lele, wasn't just silence, it was erasure. But you weren't erased. You left a trail, and I'm following it. They called it a pact. I call it a curse. And I'm breaking it." The next morning, Travis Reed's apartment burned to the ground. Gas line explosion. They said no body was found, only his dog tags. Melted, scorched, placed perfectly. On the ashes, like a signature, Lena reviewed the last image on Maya's camera roll. It was from the hike, a picture of Jesse mid-laugh off guard, vulnerable but in the background, barely visible, A man in shadow, watching Travis, or someone else, because now Lena wasn't so sure Travis was acting alone, or if the pact had ever been disbanded. The sheriff's office received an anonymous package. Inside, a USB footage from a GoPro, timestamped 1 hour before Jesse vanished. He was hiking alone, talking to the camera. If this gets out, it means I'm dead. There's another man, not Travis. He was never in the military, but he knows everything. About room 112, about Lele, about Maya. He wears a crescent patch, always watching. I call him the Shepherd. Lena stood over her caseboard, 12 names. Now, Emily, Maya, Lele, victims, Jesse, Travis, Callow, accomplices, cowards, but one name was still missing. The one who gave orders, the one behind the pact, the one Jesse feared the most. The image was grainy. Shot in low light, a man with a weathered face standing just behind Jesse in the GoPro footage. Hard to make out, but not invisible, a crescent-shaped patch on the jacket. No insignia, just the curve. A crescent moon, hollow and perfect. Lena played the footage a 5th time, freezing it as Jesse whispered, he was never in the military, but he knows everything. I call him the Shepherd, not a name, a title, a watcher, a manipulator. The person who didn't just bury the truth, he bred it the next morning. Lena met with Ellis Fahy, the VA counselor who'd cracked open the story of the pact. You ever hear of someone called the Shepherd? She asked. Ellis looked like she'd slapped him. You're still chasing this? You said yourself, this wasn't just PTSD, she said. These men had handlers, rituals, rules. Yeah, but the Shepherd, he trailed off, rubbing his temple. Some of the guys mentioned him, but always in whispers. He wasn't military, he was something else, always outside the frame. What did he do? Recruited, directed, cleaned up. When soldiers were compromised, violent, paranoid, dangerous, he'd find them, offer structure, loyalty, forgiveness. Forgiveness for what? For surviving. Lena knew it wasn't enough. She needed a name, a face. She went to the last living member of Jesse and Travis's squad, Darian Cole, dishonorably discharged for assaulting a commanding officer, now working as a tow truck driver in Needles, California. She drove 6 hours through dust and nothingness to find him. His trailer was parked behind a scrapyard. His dog barked violently at her cruiser. He didn't answer the door until she threatened to call the fire department. Darian was big. Shaved head, face like busted concrete. You fed or armed? He asked. I brought coffee, she replied. That got a smile. Half a smile. Inside the trailer, Darian sat on a milk crate. A shotgun leaned casually against the counter. Lena cut to the chase. I'm not here to charge you. I'm here for the truth. That's more dangerous, he said. Tell me about the Shepherd. He took a long sip. You ever heard of white ink? No, it's a ghost program, like Black Ops, but even blacker. Funded off the books, no oversight. After Fallujah went sideways, they started scooping up guys with kill counts and psych scars. And doing what with them? Training them to forget what conscience sounds like. And the Shepherd, he ran it name, don't have one. But I heard a nickname once, called him Father Quinn. Don't think it was real, but he acted like a priest. Soft voice, steel eyes, said pain was just unfinished purpose. Lena leaned forward. Where is he now? Darian shook his head slowly. Don't find him, you just make noise, and hope he doesn't find you. Lena left with more questions than answers. But she now had a name, or at least, a fable wrapped in skin, Father Quinn, the Shepherd, and someone had scrubbed every trace of him from every database. No paper trail, no military record, no social security match. A ghost with a file shredder that night. Lena's front door lock clicked open. She'd left it locked. She drew her weapon, back to the wall. Heart pounding. But no one entered. A sound click, the fax machine. A leftover relic, something she never used. It buzzed, screeched, then printed one sheet, black ink. Scented, stop. She stared, then turned it over. A second message, faint, barely visible, pressed from behind. She held it to the light. The shepherd sees all. The next day, she met with a journalist named Ray Zamora, who ran an underground site for whistleblower leaks and classified unsealings. I need you to find me Father Quinn, Lena said, handing her the audio files. The Jesse logs, the lockbox contents, Maya's journal scans. Ray whistled. This is some Nightcrawler-level conspiracy stuff. Is that a yes? Ray nodded. If he exists, I'll find him. Good, Lena said, standing to leave. Wait, Ray said, handing her a sealed envelope. This was dropped off at our P.O. box 2 days ago. No return address. We didn't open it yet. Lena opened it in the car. Inside, a photograph of Emily Hart's dead body, except her eyes were open, and written on the back. She wasn't the first. That night, Lena received a call from Ellis Fahy. There's something I never told you. She sat up. Go on. I once treated a soldier named Aaron Blake, a sniper. He'd wake up screaming Quinn is watching, drew the same crescent symbol in every session. Said it was the mark of God. What happened to him? 2 days. Before he was scheduled to testify at a military tribunal, he drowned in his bathtub. Suicide. They said that, but he'd taped his own mouth shut and zip-tied his hands behind his back. Silence, Lena, Ellis said, voice cracking. You need to stop. I can't, she said. Not now. Then leave a note for someone, just in case. The next morning, Nico Reyes was found unconscious in his apartment. The scene looked like a break-in, but nothing was taken except his phone when he woke up. One word was scrawled on the mirror in red marker. Remember. Lena received the forensic report from the lab on Jesse's lockbox. The trace evidence revealed 2 new fingerprints. One matched Jesse, the other, unidentified, but partial, and burned, like the person had deliberately destroyed it with acid, except for one clear ridge pattern. Lena ran it through Interpol's database. Only one match came up. 1994. Belfast. An orphanage fire, no survivors, except one unnamed boy, placed in a Catholic mission under one alias, Colin Quinn. She stared at the file, no birthday, no parents, just one note scribbled in Irish. Anne Shepherd, a Bayan in Einocht Lamactir. Bide fuel, Iron Gotch, Log. The shepherd who walks with wolves leaves blood in every footprint. The town wasn't on any current map. Even Google Earth blurred it out, like a bruise no one wanted to see. But the 1994 orphanage file led her here. A dried-up settlement 40 miles west of Sedona. One name carved on the rusted welcome, Sin, Redemption Hill. Population, none. Air, heavy, God. Silent. Lena parked her cruiser at the edge of the town and stepped out. No wind, no birds, just sun-bleached wood and dust that clung like guilt. She tightened her grip on the Glock at her hip. She hadn't told anyone she was coming. She didn't want backup. She wanted truth. The first building she entered was a chapel, stained glass. Windows shattered, pews rotting. Pulpit split in two like a broken jaw. On the wall behind the altar, someone had scrawled in red paint, "The flock is cleansed in flame." Below it, a faded symbol, a crescent. She touched the wall, half expecting it to burn. The church basement was padlocked, but a crowbar from the abandoned general store fixed that. Inside. The air smelled like mold, sweat, and secrets. She moved slowly, found a crate of VHS tapes, labeled by year. 1994-2005. She popped one into a dusty player. Beside a prayer bench, the static cleared. The video was black and white. Boys, rows of them, kneeling, heads shaved, eyes downcast, a voice off camera. When wolves breed sin into sheep, the shepherd must cut it out. A man stepped into frame, face blurred, but the voice, it was him, the shepherd, Quinn. Preaching in whispers, stripping innocence in silence, and calling it salvation. Lena snapped the tape out like it had bitten her. One frame had caught her eye, a boy, maybe 10, shaking, crying. A burn scar over his jawline. She froze. She knew that face. It was Travis Reed. This is where he came from. This is where Jesse met him. Not the battlefield, but the basement of faith. Suddenly movement, a shadow near the window. She rose instantly, gun drawn. LVPD, she shouted. Come out now. No response. She moved toward the exit. The door slammed shut behind her footsteps. Above, she was not alone. She exited into blinding sun. Nothing, no one, but then a voice behind her, soft, serene. Male, I didn't think you'd find me here. She spun. A tall man in his late 50s stood by the graveyard fence. Long coat, calm eyes, not quite smiling, not quite threatening. You're Quinn, Lena said flatly. He nodded. As if she'd just answered a riddle correctly. I'm the part of the system that knows when to vanish. You're the one who created the pact. Who trained killers to feel nothing. No, he said. I taught monsters how to look like men. And when they failed, you buried them. He tilted his head. They made their choices. I merely gave them the vocabulary. She stepped forward, gun raised. Travis killed Maya and Emily. You made him. You trained him, Quinn chuckled. No one trains chaos. You only steer it. Why? She demanded. Why go to all this effort? His voice sharpened. Because we needed men who could do what your system never could. End threats before they reached your door. Stop terror in its cradle. And yes, sometimes we broke them in the process. You turned them into weapons. I turned them into tools. Until they started thinking they were more like Jesse. Quinn's expression darkened. He got soft. You murdered him. No, Quinn said. He murdered us. The second he trusted Maya, she was trying to save him. He didn't deserve saving. A pause. Then Quinn stepped closer. You want justice, detective? Pull that trigger. End me. I won't stop you. She didn't blink, didn't move, but her finger flexed tension in the air thick enough to taste. He smiled. You won't do it. Because you know what happens when we die. Another shepherd rises. Another pact forms. He turned to walk away. She exhaled and fired. The bullet caught him in the shoulder. He collapsed against the dirt with a grunt. Not dead, but bleeding. Human. She cuffed him while he laughed. Back in Vegas, the arrest made national news. Retired pastor linked to secret military death cult. One headline read, Another LVPD detective cracks 5-year-old double disappearance in Red Rock Canyon, but Lena didn't care. What mattered was the names that didn't get headlines. Maya, Ramozan, Emily Hart. Relaying J.C. Marks, she visited Maya's mother the next day. Gave her the journal. Every page. Uncensored. The woman cried like grief had been. Waiting 5 years to be invited in. Quinn was arraigned on multiple charges: conspiracy, obstruction, accessory to murder. He pled not guilty, called himself a servant of the greater good, and in holding, he whispered to the guard, this world's not ready for what comes next. That night, Lena sat in her apartment, watching the rain slide down the windows. She poured herself a whiskey. First one in 2 years. She raised her glass. To those who spoke up, to Maya. To Emily. To Jesse, even. And to the shepherds who walk among us, no longer unseen. The trial of Jacob Quinn, aka the Shepherd, was supposed to be open and public, but nothing about this case had ever been public. Classified files were redacted. Witnesses sealed. Half the evidence, Lena knew, was only allowed in court because it leaked first. Still, she sat there every morning. Front row, no badge, no gun, just her eyes, unblinking. Quinn never looked at her directly, but he always smiled, like he knew something. The rest of the courtroom didn't. On day 5 of the trial, a bailiff found a slip of paper taped under Lena's seat. The pact never ends. It was written in block capitals. Black ink. The A in pact was stylized into a crescent. Lena handed it to forensics. But she already knew someone was still watching, and worse. Someone wanted her to know they were. Outside the courthouse, protests gathered, not against Quinn, but in support of him. A fringe group, mostly young men. Wearing military patches they didn't earn, calling themselves the flock, they chanted, blood purifies, Order redeems. The shepherd was right, we are next. And on some of their arms, tattooed, branded, or inked in Sharpie, the crescent mark. The echo of the pact had grown louder, not quieter. That night, Lena met Ray Zamora in a parking garage. I traced the group, Ray said, handing over a USB encrypted forums, ghost servers, Telegram chats. They're recruiting, sharing manifestos. Some are just angry, but they all believe in him. In Quinto, in the idea of him. She took the drive. Then we shut the idea down. Ray laughed darkly. You can't kill a ghost, Lena. I'll settle for exposing the haunting. A week later, during closing statements, Quinn finally spoke. He stood, calm hands behind his back. I am not the villain, he said softly. I am the surgeon. The one who cut out the rot you were too afraid to name. He turned slightly toward the crowd. You think the world's violent now? Wait until you see what rises without shepherds. The judge ordered him silenced, but the crowd had already heard, and the message spread like wildfire online. That same night, Lena's apartment was broken into again, but this time, nothing was taken. Instead, something was left, a Polaroid tucked under her pillow. It showed her sleeping, the angle from her own window. On the back, you opened the door. Now you live with what walks through. For the first time in years, Lena considered leaving the badge behind, starting over, somewhere without shadows. But then she looked at the photo of Maya. At the photo of Jesse, smiling in that final, unguarded moment. They had no second chance. She did, and that meant she had work to finish. She went to the press, published everything, the tapes, the voice messages, the Afghan mission logs, the lockbox photos. She didn't redact names, didn't blur faces. She named every ghost and every sin, and still, the silence came louder. Threats rolled in, someone firebombed Ray Zamora's car, but the truth was out there now, and someone, somewhere, would listen. On the final day of Quinn's sentencing, Lena walked the courthouse steps alone. No badge, no backup. Quinn was given 5 life sentences without parole. He didn't blink, didn't protest, just whispered to the guard as he left. One shepherd dies, another is born. Lena returned to Red Rock Canyon one last time. Widow's Point was quiet. She stood where Maya had taken her final steps, where Jesse had vanished, where it all began. She closed her eyes, breathing in the desert silence. Then, something in the wind, she turned. No one there, but on the nearest rock, a new symbol, freshly carved, the crescent, and beneath it, we watch, we wait. She didn't report it, didn't call forensics. She knew the war wasn't over, but she also knew one thing. If they were watching, so was she. Epilogue 1 year later, Wadcast topped the charts. Widow's Point, the Red Rock Pactet, told the story of Maya, Jesse, Quinn, and the whispers in the canyon. Narrated by a woman with a calm voice and a badge in a drawer. Lena never appeared on video, but her words lingered. Truth isn't what saves us, it's what costs us everything, and still makes us show up the next day. Because even if justice sleeps, someone's gotta keep the damn door open. A small town outside Boise. Population 1401. No crime in 5 years. Until last night, a young girl, 17, walked into the sheriff's office at 2:17 a.m., drenched in blood, holding a hunting knife, eyes wide, unblinking. She dropped the blade and whispered, he said to find her. The detective from Vegas. He said she'd know what to do with me. Lena didn't take the call. Not right away. She was sitting on her balcony in the neon quiet of downtown Las Vegas, reading a paperback she didn't remember starting. When her burner phone buzzed, she didn't flinch. She answered on the third ring. Marquez, a familiar voice crackled over the line. Reyes, you're gonna want to come see this. Boise was colder than she remembered. The girl's name was Mira, no last name on file, no fingerprints in the system. She sat cross-legged in the interview room, humming what sounded like a lullaby in Gaelic. On the table, a folder marked for Lena Marquez. Lena opened it slowly. Inside were pages, hand-drawn schematics of The Redemption Hill Chapel. Basement layout. VHS stack locations. Detailed camera angles. Things she hadn't documented. Things only someone who'd lived there would know. Mira, she asked gently. Where did you learn this? The girl looked up, smiled faintly. I was born there. Lena's heart slowed. You mean you lived near Redemption Hill? Mira shook her head. No, I was born there, in the chapel, in the fire. She stared at the girl. Myra's wrists bore faint crescent-shaped scars. Not tattoos. Brands. Lena swallowed hard. You knew Quinn. Mira nodded. He was my first father, but not my last. What does that mean? Mira leaned forward, smile, gone. The pact never ends, detective, it evolves. Back in the Vegas precinct, Lena dug deep beneath every classified memo and sealed juvenile file. She found whispers of a survivor group 3, post-Redemption Hill. After the fire, 5 children allegedly rescued. All shuffled into different private placements, all deceased within 3 years except one. Mira's file had been sealed. Under a false name, S.E. Hatch. Subject evaluation, emotionally blank. High pattern recognition, prone to silence. Possibly indoctrinated. Last seen at age 9, vanished from foster care, now here she was. 17, covered in blood, whispering about Quinn, and rebirth. The next night, a parcel arrived at Lena's doorstep, no return address. Inside, a Polaroid, 5 teenagers, standing together in a darkened basement, pews behind them. A shattered cross to their left. All wore the crescent, Mira in the center. On the back, asterisk, we're not soldiers. We're children who were trained to wait. Lena couldn't sleep. She stared at the photo. Then back at the Boise interview transcript, Myra had said one more thing. Just before they transferred her to psychiatric custody. The shepherd was never a man, he was an idea that needed a body. Now where the body? Ray Zamora called the next morning. 3 murders in Washington state. All military connected. All shot with the same rifle. Lena's heart dropped, and a crescent mark carved into the floor beside each victim. Lena rubbed her temple. So it's happening again. No, Ray said. It's not happening again. It's starting over. Lena visited Mirror 1. Last time, through shatterproof glass, the girl sat with folded hands. Silent. Lena leaned into the mic. I'm not afraid of you, Mira smirked. You should be. Why? Mira tilted her head, soft and eerie. Because you broke the pact, but you never burned the Bible, it was written in. Outside, rain began to fall. And Lena knew. This wasn't a sequel. This was a reboot. Smarter, younger, meaner, and somewhere in the shadows. Children trained in silence were walking among the noise of the world. Dressed like us, speaking like us, but waiting for something we didn't understand yet.